Welcome, Dr. Perro. We met some years ago at Sustainable Fairfax, and I remember thinking, this lady is a firebrand, and she tells it like it is. So we've done some work together with moms advocating sustainability with the Modern Moms Health Forum. And Dr. Perro is an integrative pediatrician here in Marin County, and she works for the Institute for Healing and Health. And she's a mom pediatrician, and as far as I'm concerned, a clarion clear voice for issues around health that we in the U.S. are dealing with now. So let's plunge into it here. So what changes, Dr. Perro, have you seen in the last 30 years in illnesses of children?
Molly, it's been an interesting journey, and the unfortunate part is I've seen a decline in our children's health with a profound increase with certain very alarming health issues. And they encompass all types of health issues. Everything from respiratory issues, increases of allergies and asthma, endocrine disorders such as diabetes, type 1, type 2, and now even type 3. It's another topic. Premature puberty, big problem in children. Kids going into puberty at 8 or 10 for girls and 12 for boys. You could imagine what's happening in middle schools. Disaster. And health issues around neurodevelopmental issues regarding ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as well as autistic spectrum issues, and on and on. So it's this profound change in what we as pediatricians are treating now in children.
So in the last 30 years, there is such a difference that you're mentioning now in the quantity of illness and the types, as well as the level of illness of the children?
My practice has evolved. As you mentioned, I was a pediatric emergency physician, and over the years I've changed what I do to sort of embrace more what I'm seeing now. And what you mentioned, my practice now is integrative health. I do both pediatrics and functional medicine, homeopathic medicine, because what I've learned is the previous methods of healing children no longer apply now because our kids are much sicker and different types of health issues.
So what do you think is the reason why the U.S. is now the 17th worst of the developing countries in health indicators? Why is this? On the societal level, we seem to be worse than even the other countries.
I think there are I think the major factors why our health is declining so much in the U.S. and we spend so much more money compared to the other industrialized countries are severalfold. One would have to do with our food and food toxicities, and we can discuss that further. 2 is environmental toxins. It's profound environmentally. And 3, big pharma, the influence of drugs on our health and how we practice health, and there has to be a paradigm switch on how we give health care. So those are it's mostly what we're seeing is toxic related.
I see.
And in my vision, and what that's about.
And kind of on the systemic level, on the societal level as well. So the industrialized food and the growth of that, and the way that food is grown.
Well, that's I spend a lot of time talking about nutrition in my practice. I feel sometimes that's all I do is talk about food. That is the cornerstone for children's health. And our food system has been compromised in many ways. It's been compromised by pesticides, genetically modified organisms in our food, runoff from other toxins, including fertilizers and nitrates and other things that have gone to the groundwater, chemicals that have gotten into the water that contaminate our food, such as things like perchlorates, kids who live near environmental dump sites. So this is a huge factor in what we give our children is what they're eating. So that alone, I think we could spend a lot of time talking about, but that is one of my biggest concerns. And that's
so we're feeding our children food that may be poisonous. It also seems that may be less nutrition in the food because of the soil and the way that the food is grown.
There is no doubt in my mind, and I think I could just give it into this, that children should only be eating non-processed organic food, period. Because there is no amount of pesticide in food that is safe for children. And there's a lot of good research on that, despite even the fact that yesterday I received the EPA report on health of our children and the environment. Just came out yesterday. And I was hoping I'd get it ready as we were having our dialogue, and I was scanning 250 some odd pages, but they talked a lot about the state of our kids' health. And they had one small paragraph in there about glyphosate. And
so now, what is glyphosate?
Glyphosate is the product in Roundup. It's a pesticide. It's a type of, a class of pesticide called aromatase inhibitors, and with a lot of toxicity both for children and all of us, not just children. And this one paragraph in the EPA study did say that there was a link with glyphosate and reproduction. And they specifically said, and this is unusual because, as you know, we've been dealing with this Prop 37 in California and the GMO issue, but it's clear. And it's been widely published in European studies of the health risks on animals, not so much in human population of this particular pesticide, but there are lots of bad pesticides. That's just one really bad pesticide.
Is this the one that actually explodes the guts of the pesticides?
This could be one of the. This one is also found in the plants themselves, and those little bacteria called Bt bacteria that we ingest, and some of us don't seem to kill off this bacteria, and we have little pesticide factories in some of us going on in our guts, but that goes off on a whole different subject. I don't know if we want to get into that. But for example, in the Central Valley in California, big growing area, lots of organophosphates, and clear studies linking organophosphates and increased rates of ADHD in children. And it's pretty clear, they've studied even why this is happening and what types of enzymes these kids lack and are unable to break down the pesticides.
So you think this ties into the increase in the illness and the quantity and depth of illness that our children have now?
I do.
You see a direct correlation with the environmental toxins?
I do. We've had to become toxicologists as pediatricians.
Oh my gosh.
Because of, I think so much of it's from the toxic exposures. Because of the genetically modified food, they spray more Roundup. I think kids are being exposed. Glyphosate, they spray more. Kids are more exposed, no doubt. So that's just one small element of the big toxic pie. No studies on the multi-effects on children with multiple chemical exposures. What happens when you have plastics, heavy metals, mercury and lead are still huge for children, and other heavy metals,
The cumulative effects, the possible.
What happens when they're together with the genetically modified food? So these are some of the things that we're trying to untangle, and we see sick children, and parents are coming to us, particularly at the Institute for Health and Healing, and saying, help us, what do we do?
So give me an example, let's say, of a mother and how what are we mothers dealing with our sick children? What is it that we have to handle?
It's profound. If you just take a child with severe school disruption, who's unable to focus in class, disrupting the class, the mother's getting called into school all the time, the child's impulsive, aggressive, disruptive, just ADHD issues, and they often have gut issues as well, those kids. And many of those children as well have sleep issues. They come home and they can't get to sleep, they're wired. So mothers are getting called constantly from school, and they need all sorts of special school support. The kids are aggressive, often impulsive. You can imagine what that looks like. They can't sleep, so half the family's up all night.
Oh my gosh.
Then you have a sleep-deprived family. And many of the kids may have secondary health issues, and they have that going on, and they have asthma, allergies. And you have a mom like that who's managing 1, 2, or 3 kids, and I have families with 3 children or more, and each child has a different health issue.
Oh my gosh. So how do you clinically diagnose children when they come? Are there particular tests and particular things that you do now as an integrative pediatrician that, let's say, Western medicine doesn't do it as frequently?
There are things that I use now that are in my tool bag that I didn't even have, 10 years ago. I wish I had these things. I've just been learning it as I've gone along. And some of these tests are not known or done by regular pediatricians. And what I look at is, it depends on the child, what they're coming in for, but I look a lot at the gut. You have to remember that the gut is the largest immune organ in your body. 70 to 90% of immune function is from your gut. And if kids don't have healthy guts, the rest goes to pot.
I don't think we realize that, the importance of the gut.
health.
What's in there? I mean, what it is that the microbiomes and the bacterias and...
You need healthy flora. Many children have had multiple courses of antibiotics, for example, for recurrent ear infections. It alters their own organic biome, and then that causes disruptions in their immune system. The other thing I see a lot, for example, leaky gut. Children who leak these different proteins and develop secondary immune responses and have food allergies.
So what's a leaky gut?
Well, leaky gut, it's interesting
how do you diagnose a
just,
leaky gut, too?
Well, one is I can remove certain food group offenders and see how kids do. It's called elimination diets. That's the easy way. I can test through alternative labs, well-known labs that I use, and I can look for food antibodies. And they're not the typical antibodies that, for example, an allergist might use. And some allergists and pediatricians may not feel that what we're doing testing is, I don't know, comparable to what they're doing. But I've had fabulous results finding kids who have these lower grade food antibodies and food issues. I adjust their diets, and right there they get better without having to do anything else.
Well, do you think they should all just give up gluten?
I swear, are you in my practice?
Yeah, right.
I say that all day. Getting kids off gluten is a big part of my practice. A lot of kids have gluten sensitivities, and gluten has a lot of deleterious effects on children.
Is that tied into the pesticides somehow, or is that just tied into how the food has changed, the industrialized food?
It could be secondary to so many things, and this is all my own postulation. I haven't read this per se, but extrapolating from animal studies, I think it's from GMO food creating abnormal architecture and leaky gut is what I think is happening based on rat studies, not human studies.
Right.
This is what I'm extrapolating. And these large gluten proteins are getting across the gut, which is supposed to be tight, junctions. The immune system's on the other side, picking it up, seeing it as a foreign invader, and making an immune response. And then I wonder what other toxins get across easily because that normal architecture is not intact.
Oh my goodness.
So that's what I think is going on. But nonetheless, I do see the leaky gut, and it can be fixed, and kids get better.
Yeah. So so you change their diet.
Change your diets.
And you look around their homes and see.
What I do is organic, non-GMO diet. I say that all day.
Right.
So, and then what I talk to parents a lot is somebody has to get in the kitchen. And when we left the kitchen in the 70s, I think somebody...
Yes.
Well, nobody went into the kitchen. Fast food restaurants, I think, went back in the kitchen. So now I tell people cooking's cool. There's Top Chef and being in the kitchen and making good food, and it's collaborative, mom and dad.
Right.
So we're eating no processed foods, only organic, no chemicals in the food, GMO, non-GMO, healthy soil, farmers market when possible.
Right.
It's
no fast food.
No fast food, and to begin this shift. And it takes a lot of work. It's not easy.
Yeah, well, it's lifestyle changes.
It's a lifestyle change.
Yeah, well, just a little bit more about the GMO, because you and I worked on the Moms Advocating Sustainability effort here in Marin County.
We did.
And we wanted to stop GMOs from, we wanted to label GMOs. We understand that they're banned here in Marin County as far as an agricultural product. But so do you think that we're aware of the risks of GMOs here?
I think in terms of populations, the Marin County population is so aware, so educated. I don't think people realize how pervasive it is and the health impacts. I don't think that's understood because they're not hearing it from their pediatrician. It's not in the literature. It's not in our newspapers. So when you improve kids' health, this is where we have to start. But I have some families that are very progressive. They're saying, I do all that, and my kid still has these issues. What's going on? I have families who eat that way. They don't use toxic products. They don't have any sort of toxins in their shampoos, personal care.
No fragrance.
No fragrance, organic cottons. They're model families. Kids that are still sick. What's happening? The other thing I say is look at the school.
Look at the school. Tell me, you told me an example of nursery school.
Well, I tell you my favorite school story. I had a local boy who started going to school. September came. This was this past year. Headaches, profound headaches, and couldn't figure it out what was going on with him. And lo and behold, we figured out the school installed a new carpet, and it was likely the glue.
The glue
from the carpet.
How did you figure that out?
Oh God,
You had to look it up somehow.
It was a long process, but the interesting thing was the school was unwilling to take this carpet out.
Oh.
So it's a big conversation. But you know, as moms, as families, there is so much toxic dust in schools from the cleaning products they use,
Yes.
spraying pesticides around schools. I know there are many schools that still spray, and
Yes.
parents aren't notified when they're sprayed with pesticides. So cleaning, pesticides, the actual products that kids use, the
Right.
glues and art supplies.
Yeah, the art supplies and the pens.
And so in studies, I think it was in that EPA report, they reported in both Ohio and North Carolina, they picked these two states, that the dust was completely contaminated. And that was one big toxic area. And children, as you know, closer to the ground, more in the mouth,
Right.
and they metabolize faster, they breathe faster, they take up more toxic chemicals.
Well, I had looked once at a school that my grandchildren might go to in San Francisco, and I could look it up on the EPA report, and they had found lead while they were remodeling the school, and they had to mitigate the soil all around, and I was very upset about it. And then I realized, all right, actually that's good. They were fixing it.
Yeah.
But to think that just the paint in the schools might be toxic.
You know, in terms of lead and heavy metal,
Right.
which is neurotoxin, clear cut,
Ah.
that's one area where in the U.S. we've done better. Lead levels in children have gone down.
Wonderful.
So that there is some good news here. So we've done better with lead.
Yeah.
So however, not enough. You know, we still check lead levels in kids,
Oh.
and we've seen a significant decrease.
That's so good.
But-
yeah, once we got the lead out of the gasoline, it was helpful.
Yes, the lead and there was a big public campaign, and you know, educating people about lead in paint and other sources.
Right.
And we've done similar good work with mercury. It's also happening and decreasing rates of mercury in children, hopefully.
Well, mercury is a big story here in the Bay Area because of the gold rush, and how with the separation of gold, the gold adhered to mercury, and then they just flushed the extra mercury down into the bay.
You know, that mercury has to be converted into methyl mercury, and bacteria make that conversion, and then the algae eat that up, and then the bigger fish eat that, and then the bigger fish eat that, and then we
Food
eat the big
chain.
fish.
The food chain. So I know we're not meant to eat any fish out of the bay.
I do a lot of conversations with parents about how much fish children
Really?
should eat. I worry about the heavy metals in fish.
Because we're told, you know, fish oil, what is the omega-3s? Those are what?
Well, you know, it's so funny you should mention this. I used to put all the kids on fish oil, and now I'm thinking twice about fish oil. And even though it's supposed to be cleaned of heavy metals, I'm looking at GLA, flaxseed, borage oil, other types of healthy oils. It's really good for kids on the spectrum, autistic spectrum, to give them brain food. I'm a big fan of these, you know, omega-3s, and so I have been looking at that. Well, you're sitting in my office right now. These are the topics that I talk about with my families.
Oh, that's so great. It's so important.
Yeah, it's important.
That they make, you know, look at their own lives and look at their schools. So, do you think we can heal our children?
Well,
what can we do as mothers to change this pervasive lack of health that we see around us?
well, I do believe it's very hard to get people to make change, particularly around habits of food, smoking, other addictive. I put food in the same category as addictive habits.
Oh.
Trying to come off gluten. It's not so
Off of
easy.
sugar.
Off
might be good,
sugar,
too.
off carbs. These
Yeah.
are tough addictions. So you need, when children will get better, parents will make the change. And because I ask, every time I have a family with this, I ask the moms, they often bring the kids in, who does the cooking? And when they say, I do, I say, well, that's great. Because you're in charge. And no one's driving out late at night to go pick up junk food. So it's what you have in the house. So you have to change the diet. Mom does it. Everyone eats it. Everyone, you just do it as a family. You can't hide junk food in the closet like my husband did. So none of that.
So eat real food.
Eat real food.
Yeah. Buy real food that comes directly out of the soil.
Out of the soil, real food. It's cooked. It's fresh. We talk a lot about how to cook food, slow cooking, crock pot foods, braising, how to get the most nutrition out of foods. You know, we talk a lot about that. Personal care products and cleaning products, we go over that.
Right.
School environments. And so, but you don't want to overwhelm a family. You know, if they're sort of just starting to make these changes, just give them a small list, because it can seem overwhelming. Sometimes I have moms take pictures with their phones of their pantry. I said, let me see what it looks like in there. No, I won't show you.
Modern technology.
I said, let's see, what have you got in there?
So you actually help them shop.
You can do it virtually with the iPhone.
That's so great. I had a nutritionist who took me shopping in Whole Foods once. This is good, this is bad, this is good. Oh, gosh.
That's what it takes.
Yeah.
Remember home ec?
Yeah.
I think
home ec.
Can you imagine? That's what, you know, young women used to learn in home economics. There's nothing has come in to kind of educate people.
But we can go to farmers markets and have good times. And the children love it there.
Oh, we have, in Marin County, we're so lucky.
Yeah.
We have access to so much good food.
Good local food.
Good local food.
And but we need to, you know, consider the society, the larger society in which we are.
Well, then if people, if families, if moms, like our mamas group, can begin to make these changes.
Yeah.
So make changes personally, and then how do we extend that to the bigger picture? What can you do for your community? If you have a little free time, or maybe your kids are in high school, or maybe you're a grandma, and you have more free time, we can look into the schools, local organizations, volunteering.
The parks, we could look at the parks.
Working with communities, and for what we have so many ways that you can get involved.
Well, there's Moms Advocating Sustainability. We have enabled the county parks to be pesticide free.
That's right.
What we don't know is what the federal government does in the parks, nor the municipal parks, or the state parks. I'd be very interested to know, you know, what pesticide use there is. I have heard there is pesticide use in all of those locations.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get access to some of that information, how much is used. But this is how you do it. We think locally, we change from at home, and don't forget, as pediatricians, what we tell our families is you model behavior. So we talk about, how do you get my, you know, unruly teenage son to eat this?
Exactly. So you do have a teenage son.
Well,
does he follow your advice?
You know, he's come around. My son is a sophomore in college, and he doesn't eat cookies, no sweets, no junk food, mostly salads.
At college?
Yeah, he's doing really well.
But you have a 15-year-old daughter. How's she doing?
Now, my daughter is also doing really well. She goes to school. She is involved with the Eco Club and the Organic Garden, and she's eco-conscious. Her whole school is
Maybe
eco-conscious.
she's an eco-feminist.
She's an eco-feminist. I guess it would be hard to be my kid and not to have this consciousness.
Right.
But we've evolved in my house. This is not how I started, Molly. I came from my kids eating boxed cereal, and I was putting the rubber nipple to heat up the bottle when the kids were little in the microwave.
Right.
I've come a long way thinking, oh no. So, you know, I tell moms, lose that guilt. We didn't know.
Right.
We just didn't know.
Yeah.
So you have to leave that guilt behind.
Right. You have to face it. You have to see it and understand it.
That's
it's
right.
reality.
Yeah.
But, you know, we can't just keep flagellating ourselves about it.
No self-flagellation.
No.
So yes, the answer to your question is kids can heal. I like to do some testing for some of those kids, and then we use some integrative health therapies to help them heal.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell me, what is your passion then to change the world? And what advice, or what would you want to tell other mothers about what they can do and how they can change our world to be a better one for their children and for their grandchildren?
So I think for me, what I tell my moms is every change they make, even if it's one change, is a significant change. That you don't need to change everything in a day. To begin small, so you don't feel overwhelmed. And so we can take baby steps. Some families are just ready to do it.
Yeah.
They're there.
So what are some of the first steps?
The first steps I do is Parents say, do I need to empty my cupboard and throw everything out? I said, eat what you have. You know, it's hard to waste food. Families are on budgets. I said, but now from forward on, you can buy bulk organic. It's affordable.
Right.
Whether they go to Good Earth or wherever they shop.
Buy the bulk. Right.
Buy bulk.
Mm-hmm.
Buy bulk and make it.
Beans and rice.
Beans and rice. It's great food. Half the world lives on beans and rice. And it's affordable.
Yeah.
But to begin to just make a change there, what you're buying. Don't buy processed food.
Right.
And you'll save on your budget. And don't cave to the kids. Mom, not to cave.
So you have the right snacks in the right place. I heard. So in the car, if they're hungry, just have carrots.
You know what you can do is you can have delicious snacks. You have to have the snacks ready.
Right.
So my daughter needed a snack, and she wanted a treat. So we put together some almonds, raisins, and some dark chocolate chips the other night, and a little bag for her for school. I was just doing this with my daughter just the other night.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just great.
Simple.
It's simple.
It's
and that was a
super.
little treat. And that was a special treat.
But so we as women, are we going to be able to heal our children and change the world and save the world?
I have no doubt. I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation if I didn't think we could do it. I think we can. We're motivated to change because we're motivated for our children's health. So women are a powerful force because for the most part, we're the ones bringing up our kids' health.
Right.
In my practice, and dads are involved too. But the women seem to have a special calling to keep their kids healthy. And I do think they'll make these changes, and they have. And I see it. And I see kids healthier. I see them sick, and they get healthier.
Isn't that great? So there's
the
inspiring. Fierceness. There's a fierceness, let's say, about mothers wanting to improve the world for their children.
This is the group that I try to tap into, are my moms. You know, I kind of piss off enough moms. They sort of get with the program. They get it. When I talk to women, they get it.
And then obviously we would invite them to step out and be on a larger stage, find our voices, find where we can take a stand about this.
And what appeals to them.
Right.
What small piece can they do? Even if it's just inquiring at their school board, do you spray the field?
Right.
Simple. It could be that simple.
Yeah.
Or looking in their classroom. If they just painted, is it VOC-free paint? Kids have to sit in that 6 straight hours. They're going to come home with headaches.
Yeah.
You know, or the carpet story that we talked about.
That's so important.
Can we use a kind of carpet that's not plastic, not with that off-gassing of certain glues and bad chemicals? Is it possible? So we have to get together, strengthen numbers, and then moms groups such as Ross Valley Mothers Club or different, online groups can get together and they can band together.
Yeah. So we can speak up. We can make a difference if we have the respect for ourselves and for our world and our life to speak up and have, something strong to say.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Perro, for being here with us today and for giving us advice.
My pleasure.
For being, the doctor mom that is living the reality of what we are doing in this world, and we know we'll make it better for our children.
Thank you.
You're welcome.